It's June 22nd, 2020. This is Rook. It is near impossible to untangle the stories of people living in the Iranian diaspora from the lessons and legacy of the 1979 revolution. But for those who were at the top of their game in Iran in the late 70s, the tales of life and career upheaval can be devastating. Imagine, for example, one of the best tennis players in the world, an Iranian, suddenly having to put his career on hold, effectively taken off the courts for 10 years. Today, a feature interview with Mansour Bahrami about his story and how it has turned into one of redemption and inspiration. This is Stories from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is Rook. Hi there, welcome to episode number 20 of Rook. امیدوار هستم که خوب هستین. Hi Shaya.
Hi.
Happy episode number 20 to you.
Oh yes.
I have a small bag of peste for you to celebrate.
Oh great.
And then you give one to me.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why? I mean, ironically, do you say امیدوارم خوب هستین, or you?
Did I? Is it خوب باشین? Is it? I thought we went through this, and the people, my people decided that it was okay. They wrote it and said Hastin is okay.
Okay.
I forgot. امیدوار هستم که خوب باشین. Do you like pistachios, right?
Yes.
You would have to. You would be a traitor without liking pistachios. So, extra peste for episode number 20.
Great, thank you.
Shaya, have you ever played tennis?
Couple of times, but no.
Not really. You're not a tennis player. Do you play any sports? You bike?
I bike. Yeah. What was your question? Sorry.
My question is, we have a superstar tennis player now, the great entertainer as well,
yes,
Mansour Bahrami, coming up today.
Yes,
and so actually coming up in a few minutes. Yeah. But so I was asking you what your sport is. What's your
soccer? Actually.
Football, yeah.
Football,
soccer, yeah. Do you use a two-pitchel ticket? See, I'm learning.
Yes.
For those who did not hear the last episode of Rook, you got to keep up, because we learned what the actually I was going to say the colloquial word, but it's the actual way that you what you call a soccer ball, a football, is two-pitchel ticket. So that's, for me, the sports were always soccer, like football or hockey. And so in the winter months, hockey; in the summer, football.
What, tennis?
Not much. I have actually, my dear cousins are really into tennis, and they keep trying to get me to play tennis, and I'm just not very good, because I've only done it a few times, and so then I go, let's play soccer so that I can look better, Speaking of which, the Premier League soccer just started, and I think the Persian League football starts this week. Right?
I think so, yeah. It's been a year that I've never followed.
You don't follow it. You don't follow the English league either.
Yeah, not in. Yeah, but
you're an artsy guy, Shia. Let's face it.
No.
Okay.
No. I used to follow all the footballs all over the world, but recently no. I have a question actually now.
Yes.
What's your favorite team?
You don't know what my favorite team is?
No.
You've been to my house and you didn't see the flag? No, maybe not. No. It's my favorite team is Arsenal. That plays.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, I would say I wouldn't even say I'm an Arsenal fan. I would say I'm an Arsenal obsessive. since I was,
Really?
well, I grew up in England.
Yeah.
And since I was a little boy, I was a fan of Arsenal. So, this is decades in the making, my Arsenal fandom, which is, of course, an exercise in masochism, because they're always, there's always some tragedy. We're always losing, I mean, notwithstanding the early 2000s with the Invincibles, the great team that we had then, it can be a real sad, growing up in Toronto, and my favorite teams being Arsenal and the Toronto Maple Leafs, who haven't won a Stanley Cup in my lifetime. It was just a disaster. But I watched the Premier League starting on this past weekend, and so you didn't watch, but there's no crowd, right?
Oh, no
So
way.
so it's really awkward.
Wow.
It's weird.
Ooh.
And then they've been piping in the soundtrack of a crowd.
No way.
Which sounds ridiculous, the idea of it, but it actually helps a little bit. I know this is controversial. Some people don't like that. For me, it helps a little bit because the whole idea is just so ridiculous. These guys, these well-paid guys playing in this giant stadium that's empty. There's no humans in it, with some referees wearing masks. I mean, the whole thing is weird, right? So I don't know if with the Persian League, I'm assuming it's going to do something similar, where they'll not have fans there, and maybe they'll use the soundtrack or something. Nice to see you, Shaya.
Nice to see you.
And let's get to our featured guest. So imagine being a teenage tennis prodigy, living in a sports complex housing 14 courts, and not being allowed to step foot on one. Imagine teaching yourself to play tennis with dustpans, frying pans, or a plank of wood before you ever own your first tennis racket at the age of 13. Imagine that despite all your unorthodox equipment and dearth of practice, you get the opportunity to play for the first time on a court only when the national team is short one player. Then you make it to the Davis Cup and help your national team, all by the age of 16. You are widely seen as one of the best new players on the international scene, and then, boom, a revolution in your country shifts power to a government that considers tennis a Western, capitalist, and elitist sport, and slams shut all tennis courts in the country, and with it, your prospects of being one of the world greats in your prime. My guest today is a legendary doubles player, a tennis star, and an international favorite. He's also one of the most talented tennis tricksters of all time, a maverick who can serve while holding 6 tennis balls in his hand, a man who chats with the crowd whilst feeding lobs to his opposition, and a man who can catch tennis balls in his pocket while playing an improbable winning shot. Mansour Bahrami is an Iranian-French former professional tennis player who reached the French Open doubles final in 1989, and he has been a mainstay of the seniors' invitational tennis circuit for more than 20 years, running some of the legends' meets. Mansour is considered to have found his niche on the ATP Champions Tour, where his flamboyant style and propensity for spectacular shots jived with the tour's more entertainment-oriented mandate. In reference to his showmanship, his 2009 English-language autobiography is titled The Court Jester. He still plays tournaments with the greats around the world, and right now, Mansour Bahrami joins me from Paris, France. Hello, monsieur.
Hello. Hello to you and all the people who are listening to us.
What a great pleasure it is to speak to you. Merci que, Omadia. We're really happy to have you on this program.
It's a pleasure.
First of all, I mean, you're in France. How have you, I'd be remiss if I don't ask you how you've been coping during this COVID pandemic. France was hit pretty hard. I'm guessing you were unable to get on the tennis courts for a while.
Well, I start for the first time after 3 months and a half. We opened the National Tennis Center yesterday. And so for the first time, I went on court and practiced for like a half an hour session just to hit some balls and have a good sweat. And that's it. But the locker rooms are not open, the bars and the restaurant at the club is not open. You can just go there and hit some balls and come out.
You know, Mansour, I was thinking about tennis because a few weeks ago we had a woman named Farinaz Lari on this show who's a champion kickboxer. And obviously that's a contact sport. And she was saying, I have no idea when post-pandemic we're going to be able to get back together. And we actually used tennis as an example of a sport that we could imagine even during COVID you could play because you're across, the court from each other. What can you tell us about how soon things might get back to some sense of normalcy for tennis fans?
Well, actually, we could not play because if I have the COVID and I don't know about it, and I serve with the ball, for example, and that ball is in my hand, and the ball I hit is out, and you catch the ball, you can get infected too. So
Right.
that was the main reason that we didn't play, and we are still very, very careful and trying to go by the, just never, you cannot go there without the mask. I was lucky we have a small garden, so I was trying to do some training physical in the garden. So it was okay. It was better than to stay in the flat and not be able to go out.
Well, I know Wimbledon has been canceled this year, where you're one of the favorites. And I want to get into your whole story, but before I do, you're widely known as not just a great player, Mansour, but the great entertainer. Especially in recent years, you've made it clear that winning comes second to you after wanting the audience to really enjoy themselves. And it's a really lovely sentiment, but it's not something we often hear from athletes who seem to be trained to just want to win, win, win. Where does the incentive to entertain come from in you?
Jian, when I started playing tennis, there was no money. I didn't play tennis to become rich. It was a game that was forbidden for me. And we would go out of the tennis club, outside somewhere, just make it like a tennis court as a 10 years old, 9 years old kid can do. We do our lines and then put a net. And then I would play with my friends with a dustpan, with a piece of wood. And we were just having fun. It was a fun game, and we would do all these trick shots. We would try to do who's doing better trick shots. And so this stayed on me. And you say why I do that? I never had a tennis lesson in my life. I never had a tennis coach in my life. And so once you are self-taught, you're doing it alone. Yeah, and no one is there to tell you, no, you cannot do this, you're not allowed to that, you have to do a decent tennis, serious point, you have to win. So it's just stayed the game for me. When I start, people always seems to enjoy my game. Even if when I was 10, 12 years old, hitting against the wall, people would just stop and say, wow, how you do that? And I don't know, I still don't know. I just tell them, I don't know, I just played like this all my life. And you said winning is secondary for me. I love to win. It's not that I like to lose. The main thing for me is when people leaving after my match, I love to see people with a big smile. It has happened that I have sometimes won a match, and I thought that, okay, but people didn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted them to enjoy it. So it was like a loss for me. I feel like I am going on the stage on a theater, and then people are there, and I feel like I'm like a one-man show. I do my stuff, and I love to see people with a big smile. That's my goal.
It's so. I mean, this is why people love you too, because they can feel that you're there for them. There's so much you just said there. I'm going to get into those 10 best years that you lost, but I have to say, when you talk about, because I've seen you in other interviews, you say, I don't know how I'm doing these tricks. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say that you're yani duruq bigivali. I don't believe you. I think you must know. I think you are a master who knows exactly what you're doing, and you play this guy who says, I don't know, but your shots are too spectacular for you to not know how you're doing it.
Yeah, I don't lie. I have no one ever taught me these things. When, for example, people tell me held 21 balls in my hand once. People tell me how you do that. The only explanation I had for this was that from age 5 to age 13, I was ball boying for people. I was ball boying from 5 o'clock in the morning and sometimes till 8, 9 at night. And just sometimes I had all these balls in my hand and waiting for the man who was playing to ask me for a ball. So I think this comes to my mind. That's how and that's why I learned to keep the 21 balls in hand. I can serve with 9 balls in the hand and toss one without dropping the others. But nobody came to tell, okay, Mansour, I want to teach you how to serve with 8 balls, 9 balls, 6 balls. I just do it myself, and I tried this, and I see people laughing, they're having good time, and I say, great, I'm so happy to be able to make people laugh, which is not always easy. I'm not a very funny man in the everyday life, but on the tennis court, I am the happiest man in the world, and I could be the funniest man on the court, because that I know since 40 years, 50 years, I make people laugh, and they say thank you, and that is the best salary for me, just to see them smile and say, Mansour, we had good time, thank you for this. Sometimes people tell me, Mansour, my wife hated tennis, so I brought it. Since she saw you, she's playing tennis. She wants to play tennis. People tell me this every day, and this is why I'm still at 64 playing. And this is what I like to hear. This is what I like to see, that people having fun and enjoying, and that's great. I mean, I love it.
My only point was you're also a great player, and there's no way that you're as good as you are without practicing. So you make it seem easy, but those tricks are the tricks. There's a reason why McEnroe and Ilie Nastase and all these guys consider you one of the greats. It's because of your technique too, right?
They are very kind with me, I have had the honor and privilege to play with the biggest name of our sport, and which is not given to many people, I played with people like Rod Laver, who is our the god of tennis.
Yes.
I played with Ken Rosewall, Newcomb, Roach, and then coming down to Santana, Nastase, Connors, Borg, and it's been fantastic. And when Jimmy Connors started his tour, back in 1994, we knew each other. We have played some exhibitions in Europe. He said, Mansour, I want you to play every tournament of my tour. And it was great, So I said, yeah, it wasn't because I was a Grand Slam winner or past number one. It was just because I was doing something that the others didn't or couldn't do it, So that's why I was there, and I was the only one who was playing every tournament of Jimmy, and that was fantastic.
Take me back. I want to actually go step by step through how we got to where you are today. You have this remarkable story, and all of us in the Iranian diaspora are affected by the events of Iran in the last 41 years, but you're one of these very difficult stories. First of all, let's go back before the Inqilab, before the revolution. What was your early childhood like in Iran? What do you remember as a little kid?
My great parents, they were farmers. They lived in a village in Iraq, which is like 300 kilometers from Tehran. They had a lot of livestock and everything. They lost everything. I was born in 1956, in April 1956. 9 months after my father and mother and the family, they came to Tehran because my grandparents lost everything, and my father came to Tehran. He didn't have anything. He was already 59 years old, and he had a job as a gardener in Amjadieh Stadium. Do you know Amjadieh?
I've heard of it, yes.
Well, you are maybe young, but
Very
I don't
young.
know how old you are, Jian. But Amjadieh was the paradise on earth for me, the best place in all my life. If everything has to come back to 1957, 58, I would love to do the same thing and come back to Amjadieh. And my father had a gardener job in this sport complex, Amjadieh Stadium. And I was 2, 3 years old. I started walking and I saw every sports court and field and everything. And it was okay. I could go anywhere. I had no people, they knew me, They were, this is Mansour, the little Mansour. And I had no problem doing any others. I mean, to going to football field, basketball, volleyball, swimming and everything. But tennis, every time I came to the court, they kicked my ass and they said out, And so I couldn't understand why they don't want me here. So after coming back and then I was 5, 6 years old, they said, okay, you can come here and you are only allowed to do ball boy. You are not allowed to go on court and hit on the courts. So I was happy. I was playing ball boying for 10 cents an hour, and then I loved the game and I just wanted to play tennis because it
wait
was
a second.
forbidden.
So when you see all of these sports, lots of kids, especially Iranian kids, would love, for example, football, soccer. See all these sports. Do you remember what it was? Because this was going to become now the rest of your life, decades of your life. Do you remember first seeing tennis? What it was about this sport that so captured your imagination?
The very, very first thing was that the only sport that I was sleeping. I would wake up by the sound of the ball being hit by a racket,
Wow.
5 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, because in Tehran, especially in the summertime, it gets so hot after like 9, 10, people don't play tennis anymore until 4, 5 in the afternoon, and then it cools down and then they'll come back and play. But that's why when I say 5 in the morning, 5 in the morning was the busiest time of playing tennis. People would come at 5 in the morning. I could hear the sound of the ball. And it's just something that I think I liked. And I would just come up and go and see people play and later on be ball boy. And I was making 10 cents per hour. That was the fee that we were getting.
And I'm guessing that not that this would be unique to Iran. This was the case all over the world. It's become a little more accessible now, but I'm guessing there was a real class divide. Like tennis was more for rich people, right?
Tennis, it was in Iran in 1965. I think we had maybe in the whole country, we had maybe 35, 40 tennis courts.
Oh.
Not clubs, huh? I'm saying in Tehran we had Amjadieh Stadium, and that's it.
Wow.
And you had the English embassy who had the one court, French embassy had the court, American embassy had the court, but that was for themselves. Beside that, you had in the whole country you had 35, maybe 40 courts. And then later on we had the Imperial Country Club, and then the Taj Tennis Club, and many others. But tennis was a new sport, and it was for the elite. And just because of that, there were so many people wanted to play, mainly rich people, and so there was no room for me to go and play.
So there's this mental image that I have of you playing with frying pans, and because you love this sport, but you don't have, and there's so many great. Almost mythical stories of great athletes, great soccer players who played with bare feet, or hockey players who had to borrow skates and stuff them full of newspapers to fit the right size. And you're there with frying pans. When was the first time you got your hands on a real racket, on a real tennis court?
When I was, like 12 years old, I was ball boying for Shirzad Akbari. Shirzad Akbari was my idol. Yeah, he was playing Davis Cup for Iran. I was ball boying for him. He was giving tennis lesson, for living, and I was ball boying. So one day he said, Mansour, if you ball boy properly today, I have a gift for you. I said, okay, I'm gonna do the best I can. At the end of the evening, he gave me a racket, and I was 12 years old, and so here I am with my first racket of my life. And so I was so excited, so happy that I have a real racket. I couldn't sleep really that night. And then day after I have my racket, I come to the tennis court. It's like one in the afternoon. There we had 13 courts in the Amjadiya Stadium, and every court was empty. And it was like a hot summer day, and I had a friend there. He was allowed to play. And he said, Mansour, let's go play, try your racket, this is your first racket and everything. So I couldn't wait, and I really had to take this risk and to go to the court. And we went and we played like maybe 45 seconds, max 1 minute. And I saw myself surrounded by the guards. And so all they needed to ask me was, Mansour, F off, go out, and I knew that I have to go, so no problem. But one of this guy, he grabbed me, he stopped me, he took me over his head for 6-7 times, and he smashed me on the ground. And I swear to God, I thought that it was the last day of my life.
Yes.
So there was blood all over the place. I couldn't really move anymore. And he went towards my racket, and I said to him, please don't touch my racket. And he gave me a very bad look, and then he took my racket, he put it on a step, and he smashed it in two, and it was like he broke my racket. That was the first memory of my first racket.
I mean, your story is amazing, not just because we'll get to the revolution where that derails your career, obviously, but even before that, there's so many obstacles. You don't have the equipment, and then you're beaten up and your racket is smashed. Nevertheless, by the age of 16, you become selected to be part of the Iranian Davis Cup team, and you become one of the country's top players, effectively. And Mansour, I mean, you said in the beginning you didn't, you just saw this as a fun thing, but when you're 16 and then you're with the Davis Cup, did you know at this point that there were tennis stars making a lot of Rod Laver, making a lot of money playing this sport? Did it occur to you at that age in Iran that this could actually be a career?
Well, I knew that there were stars. I knew about Rod Laver. I knew about Ken Rosewall. But no, I was not aware of how much money they make or anything. When I was 12, 13, we didn't have television. We couldn't see the tennis tournaments. So no, I was not aware how much money they are making. But I know that as soon as they allow me to play, when I was 13, they said, okay, Mansour, Federation said, Mansour, now you can go on court anytime you want, as much as you want. Here is 2 rackets, and you play. And I start winning. When I was 14, I won under 16 and under 18, even with piece of wood, I could have beat people who played since 10 years. Even today, I'm able to beat people who play, club members with a piece of wood. I bet I can go on court and beat them, So, and that was, I was making a lot of betting that, with a piece of wood, with a frying pan, I can beat you. And people would say, no, how can you do? I said, okay, let's go to the court. We bet, I don't know, $10, $10. And that's why I was making my money. So by the time I became 16, 17, I was top 3-4 player in Iran, but again, when I was 20, everything stopped.
Yes.
We had one of the biggest ATP tournaments in Iran in 1977. That was the last time we did it. And it was cancelled for 78 because there was hundreds of thousands of people in the streets and no one could dare go and play tennis.
Right.
So in February 79, Islamic Republic was officially installed. But in 78 we didn't play, 79 we didn't play, 80 we didn't play, So.
But you're this player in your prime. And I want to get to your personal story, but first of all, for those non-Iranians listening, or for anyone who doesn't remember how exactly this went down, and I'm sorry to make you be the person to explain this to us, but why on earth would a sport be entirely banned by a regime? What was their exact reasoning?
Well, they said tennis, especially tennis, they said is an American capitalist game we don't want. They tried to stop every sport, but the one was which was more damaged was like tennis because it was for the elite. Because they said we don't want because the ladies they were playing with the skirts, very short
Right,
skirts,
right.
and I left, but like 3 4 years later, they finally opened because there were many people who were living from tennis. So they put pressure, and myself in the summer of 1980. We were there every day with the Ministry of Sport, asking them please open and thing. And finally, we came with this idea of doing a tournament called Revolution
Revolution Cup.
Cup.
Let me get to that, but
Yes.
first, you then at this point, you're one of the best players in the country. You're top three, if not number one. Do you remember when you first heard you would no longer be able to play tennis? Can you take us back to the emotion you would have felt hearing that your country is banning the sport that you're number one of?
Well, in 1978, when we had this tournament was going to happen, in 77, 78, I was traveling to play the ATP tournaments, and then things were going really rough in Iran and dangerous. Sometimes people were dying, sometimes in the revolution, there was fire everywhere. And so I came back to Iran and many people, those who were playing tennis, were mainly, the elite, and many of them left Iran. So the course automatically became with no clients. Nobody was playing. I couldn't go there play just alone. It was very dangerous. People would come to the club and could just kill you, or beat you up, and then the tournament that we had, which was called Ariamer Cup. It was one of the biggest tournaments. I think there was 2 3 tournaments were paying $150,000, and Iran was one of them as prize money. So the tournament they said we can't, impossible to organize. It's very dangerous. So we had to, like 2 weeks before the tournament, everything was cancelled, and then but we stayed there. We couldn't do anything. We just were playing backgammon all day to pass the time until a few months after officially they just put the locks on every door of the clubs, and then we saw there was like trees were growing on the clay court, which was very heartbreaking for me and my friends, tennis players.
You were a young man still at this point. You're in your early 20s. I mean, what were your parents saying? What were your close? Were they saying just, hey, stay away, don't give up this tennis stuff at this point?
No, my parents really didn't know what exactly tennis is. My father knew that there was tennis court. My mother never saw me play tennis. My father never saw me play tennis. My mother saw me for the first time play tennis in France. Many years after, when I invite her to come.
Sorry,
and
so
she
even when
came
you're
to-
number one in the late 70s in Iran, they don't watch you play?
No, but they didn't. They never came to any tournament to watch me, because, as I said, it was for the elite, and we were not the elite. So I was sometimes even I was one of the best tennis player, top 2 3, and I was going to play with some friends of mine who are, one of them is in New York. Is my friend Jahangir. He's a great man. I love him. I talk to him today. I talk to him every day. And he was member of the club Imperial. I would go with my friend Kambiz Derafshavan. We were Asian champion. We would go play with our friends there. And when the director was coming, we had to hide because he could kick us out. I don't understand that. You can go here. I go to any club, people come to me, Mansour, thank you for coming. But in my home, it wasn't like that.
It must have been
wasn't
hard
like
for
that.
you. You're on the Davis Cup team to not be able to share how good you
It was
were with
it
your
was very
parents.
hard. It was very hard, but that was only in that club. But most of the time, like it was good. But we had a crazy director in that club, and he didn't allow us. And until one day, one of the members that who was we were playing with, he stopped in front of the man and he said, "Hey, listen, man, you have to do your best. Two top players here. You have to be proud, and you're so." And he said, "If you say something, I'm going to smack you." And so from then on, it was easier. We could go and play.
So your tennis career effectively gets suspended in your prime with the
Yeah.
revolution, and there are some curious details about this period with you, and that I want to ask you about. First of all, you just mentioned it. You repeatedly mentioned. I've noticed in some interviews of you I was watching that you spent 3 years after the revolution. This is following the ban on tennis, playing backgammon every day. Why tachte? Why backgammon? What was that about?
Because it was gambling. The Iranians, they love to gamble. They never do anything without saying, "I bet you." Shart mi bandam. I bet you this, I bet you that. So we didn't have anything else actually, and nothing else to do. The country was on fire, everything was burning, everything, no job. For me, I'm tennis player. I'm not a banker, I'm not a politician, I'm not a actor, so and backgammon, there was in the tennis club, we were playing backgammon every day. People would come there and wait for their court until the court is ready. While waiting, they were playing backgammon. So it was like a game that everybody plays. So we played backgammon for 2-3 years, and nothing else to do. 18 hours backgammon. It was very, very, very sad and difficult to do that, but that was all we had to do. There's nothing we could do.
So you make your case to the authorities. Come on, let us play tennis, and you play a role in starting this thing called the Revolution Cup, and then in July 1980. You have this tournament where the prize for the number one is a flight to Athens, right? And you
right.
win.
Tehran, Athens, Tehran.
Yeah. So you win, but after winning the first prize, which is a ticket to Athens, you pay an extra couple $100 and change your ticket to go to Nice, to go to France. Why did you choose France?
Absolutely. Because my first thing would be America. I wanted to go to America. I had a visa valid from November 1977 till November 1981. But if you remember, in 1980 they had a crisis with the hostages.
Yes.
The American embassy was taken by the students, follower of Imam, and so the Americans, they start kicking out all the Iranians, and they told us officially, Iranians are not allowed to come to America. Even those who have a valid visa, their visa is cancelled.
Right.
So, and I knew after America, the best place for tennis is France, because I had traveled in America, I traveled in Europe, I traveled in Africa, in Australia. I knew the best place would be France. Why? Because France is here we have 10,000 clubs, and 10,000 clubs, they organize at least one tournament a year. Those days, and even today, France is the best place for practicing for the youngsters who want to become professional. Is the best place.
Right.
You can play very competitive tennis, and you can make like at that time I was making like 300, 400 to win a tournament, just to survive, just to make my living. And wait until I have an opportunity to play on the ATP tournaments. So that is why I came to France.
And you leave your obviously you leave your family behind, and your friends in Iran, and your girlfriend. Did you, in other words, you loved tennis. You had this passion so much for tennis that you knew this is what you had to do, despite all that you were going to have to lose to leave and do this.
Absolutely. Leaving my family was really not a pleasure to leave. It was just really, my heart was broken, and it still is. There is not 1 hour in day that I don't think about Iran, about my family who's back there, and the Iranians. But what could I do? If the tennis was on, I would never leave my country. I love my country of Iran, but I had to go because I love tennis too. And without tennis, I can't breathe. I can't live. So I had to leave to play tennis. And I knew in Iran, I had nothing left. I had spent all my money to continue living. I had to leave. I was very lucky. I was single. I had no kids or wife, so it was much easier to leave. Because when I came to France, it wasn't easy either because I had very tough time for a year.
Well, by the way, you
know.
say you didn't have you spent your savings. You get to Nice. I don't know if this is a true story. I think you said in one interview, the first night you get to France, you gamble what you have at a casino in Nice.
I left at 6:30 from Tehran, and I landed at 10:30 in Nice. And here I was speaking in English to the people. I needed help to know where I can go, what can I do. No one would even look at me. So after a while, I said, okay, what am I going to do? I went to the hotel. There was like a tourist office desk there, and I went there and I said, please help me. I need a hotel room tonight. I have nowhere to sleep. And the lady there, she smiled at me. She said, wow, sure. 8th of August and you want a room. There is none, zero. Everything is fully booked. And so I got out of the airport and I started walking and beside the sea on the Promenade des Anglais, and you have the sea on your right, and on your left you have all this, the street, the traffic. And so it was very hot, as you can imagine, 8th of August in south of France. And so I'm right away by the beach and I see these ladies playing beach volley, and all topless. And I don't know if I'm dreaming or if this is real. I'm pinching myself, because you might laugh or smile when I say that, but living with the Ayatollahs for 3.5 years, all you see the Ayatollah in television and radio, you forget what is outside of Iran.
Right.
So and I walked for like 2 hours, and I was hungry, I was thirsty, so I bought a sandwich and I bought a bottle of water, and it cost me like nearly 20 francs. And I had in my pocket $2,000. That was everything I had. So that was like 8,000 francs. And I said, how am I going to do with 8,000 francs? If I go to the worst hotel, if I go to if I eat the cheapest food, I can last for 10 days here, 10, 12 days. And not knowing the language, there is no way I can find a club where I can, play the club championship and give lessons or. So here I'm sitting and I'm eating my sandwiches, and then in front of me, I see casino rule. So this great idea comes to my head that I have to go to the casino and try to win 30,000, 40,000 francs. And so maybe I can stay here 2-3 months with this money, to last 3 months, 4 months. As I say to myself, the longer I stay, better chance I have to find a place, a club, to play for. So, and I say, if I lose, staying here 10 days or 1 day, it doesn't change anything. So I went to the casino, and then 15 minutes later, I came up with 0 cents. And that was like 1 PM. And it's been only 3 hours I'm in France, and I have no money left.
So just to recap, the best tennis player in Iran is in France, has lost all his money. There's a revolution back home, and you're this kid in your early 20s. It must have been a very confusing time to try to decide what you want to do.
Yeah, it was really very, very hard, very, very difficult. And then, I come out and my head is like, I don't know what to think. I can't not even think. So finally, I have no choice. Then I'm saying I have to go back. So I go to Iran Air office and I make my reservation for day after to go back to Tehran. And in the same time, I'm saying, Jesus, everybody is going to laugh at me, and he say, I'm ashamed, And so I'm crossing the street and I see a friend that I had not seen for 3-4 years, Farrokh Moazed, which was a good tennis player, and he says to me, Mansour, I'm so happy to see you. What are you doing? When did you came here? And it's great, the best move you did. You had no future in
Wait,
Iran.
hang on. The same day that you've left the casino?
Yeah. Just out of the.
You're walking on the street in Nice and you happen to see a friend. This is a crazy story, Mansour. Yeah, I've never heard this story before.
He's a very good friend of mine, and he says to me, that was the best move you did to come out of Iran because there was no future for you. And I say, yeah. And he says, when did you come? I said, I came here this morning, but the problem is I'm going back tomorrow. He says, what do you mean? I said, I just went to casino and lost. He says, there is no way I'm going to let you, stupid. How could you go to casino? I said, listen, man, this is done. This is done now. And so he says to me, listen, let's go. I'm playing this afternoon. There was a club tournament. He was in the final. He says, let's go there. Maybe we can see somebody who can help you from the federation. So we go there, and his opponent is the vice president of the tennis league of Côte d'Azur, of south of France. So we tell the guy what is my level and how I'm playing, and I told him that 3 years ago I beat the French team in Gallia Cup, and he says, yeah, I heard of that. It was you in the team. I said, yeah, I won against the number 1, and we won against France, and which was disaster for French team. I thought we were a better team, and it was normal anyway. But he says to me, well, I don't know you, but if you say the truth, you have no problem staying here and leaving of your tennis. But for that, I'm going to enter you to 4 or 5 tournaments you're going to play so I can see exactly what is your level of tennis. And so I said, okay. But then I said to my friend, Farrokh, this is fine. But, I have to go from here to Toulon. But that was the first tournament, Toulon. Day after I had to go. I said, I have to pay my train and everything. I have no money. And he says, well, Jahangir is here. This is a number, you call him and he'll help you. And Jahangir, my friend, when I was 17, 18, he was the one who was sponsoring me to go and play on the ATP. And so I said, listen, it's impossible for me to call him to say I went to casino and I'm here in Nice and he said, Mansour, I'll do. So he called Jahangir, and Jahangir said, well, where are you? We are here. He said, I'll be there in 1 hour. Jahangir came, and I was very ashamed. I was not very comfortable, and I said, listen, I came here, I lost my money, a stupid thing from my side, but this has happened. So now I need 2,000 francs, which was like $400. Otherwise, I have to go. And he said right away, he lent me the money. And I went to play my tournaments. But, and then I won 3 of 5 and 2 others I lost in the final. This is all, without playing 3 years. So
wait a sec. It's no wonder you remember the date, August 8th, because this is a remarkable. That day is a book. I mean, that's a crazy story. As invigorating as it must have been to at least see your friends there and start to feel like you might get something going in France. Your visa soon runs out. And then you become this illegal immigrant in France, and I understand you spend the next 6 years kind of as this virtual prisoner in France because you're an illegal immigrant, but you also refuse to become a political refugee. Why did you refuse to become a refugee?
That is why my visa was ending on 29th of October, and so the police, after that, I went and I begged them to extend my visa. They said, listen, we are not going to extend your visa, not for a day, but you can apply, you can ask for asylum, you can ask for a political refugee, and you give us your passport. You can stay in France, you can work, you can do your tennis, you can travel everywhere you want, but you can never go back to Iran. And I said, there is no way I am going to forget about my father, my mother, my parents, and just say, it would have been very selfish. If I was alone, no family, that right away I would have asked for a political refugee. But I couldn't accept it because my father, when I left Iran, that day of August 8th, that was the first time he cried. We knew that it's going to be maybe the last time we see us. 3 years after, I went to see him just 2 days before he died. And he said, Mansour, I've been waiting a long time for this moment. And he died. But I think I would have I could never forgive myself if I had asked for political refugee, and not see him before he died.
You know, you weren't unknown at this point in France, even after the first year that you're there, because you're so talented. By the age of 25 in 1981, you reached the third round of the French Open as a qualifier, and your cause to get a visa is a renewal of your visa in France is taken up by influential French newspapers, L'Equipe, Le Figaro. Did that help?
Jian, that was 1981. That was my last chance. I was illegal alien. I was illegal here, okay? I was staying, hiding from the police. As soon as I see a police from 100 yards from me, I would change my direction because I was afraid to stop by them, and then they said, ask for my papers. I was afraid that they put me in the first flight and send me back. So when I had a wild card to play the pre-qualifying. So I won 3 rounds on the pre-qualifying, and then I was in the qualifying draw, 3 rounds there, and then I came to the main draw. And when I won my first round against Jean-Louis Hayet, who was number 4 or 5 in France, I beat him in a straight set. And we were in war with Iraq. Iran was on the news every day.
Right.
And so that is when the media people, they helped me to get my papers sorted, and to get my, they call it carte séjour here, you call it, I don't know, green card in America.
Right.
So they asked me, who are you? What are you doing? Iranian? I said, yes, I'm Iranian. I'm a legal alien here, and I just want to play tennis. And please, if you can help me to get my papers sorted, I want to live in this country and play tennis. And so they said, this is unbearable, this is impossible. We bring sometimes the dictators, the criminals here, we give them hospitality, we give them security, and this guy just wants to play tennis. And that time, that year, we had only one FM station, radio station. And I did an interview. They play it like 20 times during a day. Week after the French Open, I went to see the police, the immigration office, and the same guy who was asking me to leave the country, he gave me my resident card, which I could be a resident in France. It didn't mean that I can travel,
right?
Because with Iranian passport, no one would give you visa. I wanted to come to Canada. They didn't give me visa. Even when I was married here and I had kids, I wanted to go to play Australian Open. The Australians didn't give me visa. So until 1989, I got my French citizenship.
Yes.
So then everything became easy and I could travel, and it was...
Let me get to that, because when you talk about the 10 best years, so we're dating it from 79 to 89, where you lose your 10 best years in the prime as one of the best tennis players in the world. There's something else going on too, which is really interesting, or kind of terrifying to me when I think about your story. You know, you say after a while, France offers you the opportunity to play some small tournaments. You can't travel to other countries. But I was watching this Instagram Live interview you did just the last week with Annabelle Croft, and you said for weeks at a time, you would have nowhere to sleep. You would walk the streets of Paris. You would often make one baguette last 3 or 4 days. You didn't have money. You didn't have resources. And I think about tennis players today who are scouted, when they're 8 years old. I think about the documentary on the Williams sisters, those incredible tennis players, and how they're out in the court with these resources, or 14 hours a day. And I'm thinking about you walking around in Paris with one baguette over 3 or 4 days, and what that would do to you as an athlete, what that would do to your even energy, let alone your skills. How could you even maintain being a tennis player in the midst of living in that kind of situation?
When you have no choice, the hope was giving me the energy to stay alive and to keep going. There were so many nights I had nowhere to sleep. I never slept in the streets of Paris because I thought if I sleep one night there, that means I accept this way of life, and I would maybe become one of those homeless people who sleeps under the bridges and everything. I walked all the night, and then in the daytime I would go in Roland Garros in front of the Guardian's office. There was a bench, sofa. I would just sit there and sleep 2-3 hours there. One of those days I was sitting there and I could see on court 3, Ilie Nastase was practicing with Guillermo Vilas. And so I'm sitting there, I don't want to disturb them, and I don't even know if they remember me or anything. So I wait there, I kind of sleep and wake and sleep, and 2 hours later they finish the practice. They're coming towards the Guardian's office to leave the balls and everything. And they come towards me, and I get up and I say, "Hello, Nasti, Guillermo, hello." And Nastase says, "Oh my God, Mansour, I'm so happy to see you. Where have you been? How you have been? We thought that you were hung up, you were killed in the revolution or anything. No news. I'm so happy to see you, And which was very, very, for me, it was like great to hear that he's things like he's happy to see me. And he told me, "Mansour, can I do something for you? If you need any help, or I can do many things here. If you." That night, I had nowhere to sleep and I had nothing to eat. I just told him everything is okay, Nasty, everything is good. I came here to play and I'm not been long here, and I'm going to, but we'll see us. And then he left. But I didn't want him to, he could have probably say, "Come live with me if you have nowhere to sleep 1 week or 2." But after that, what after that? I had to find the right way, and that was not the right way for me. So I had to get out of this mess alone, and otherwise it wouldn't work.
Mansour, as you say, things do turn around in 1989. You had turned, of course, 33 years old by this time, but you get your French nationality. You're able to compete as a full-time professional player starting in 89. And that year you reached the Roland Garros doubles final at the French Open. And,
Yes.
It is amazing the way you were able to come back, but you lost a decade of your prime as a tennis player. And yet, talking to you, seeing you in interviews, watching you on the court these days, you seem so incredibly gracious, so incredibly good-humored. In fact, you're known for your upbeat personality. It's quite remarkable. Were you ever really bitter? No one would blame you if you were bitter. How did you not descend into some kind of morose bitterness for the rest of your life for having your career stolen from you?
You know what, Jian? Today there are many, many players who would have loved to be in my place. I know that there are players who are top 5. They want to play, and they are not asked to play. And I'm not bitter, no, because what can I do? Bitterness can only hurt me. People, they thought that I could have been, great player. I don't know. I don't know how good I could have been. All I know that my best years I was not allowed to play. I couldn't play. I think I'm very lucky man. I'm so lucky, and to be 64 And to play in Wimbledon, no one has ever played at 64 in Wimbledon. They have a policy of, for example, when you get to 59, you play for the last time. And the tradition and the in Wimbledon, it's very unique, and it's a unique tournament, and it's the best tournament in the world.
Yes.
And they're asking me to come back at 64 and to play again, and I've played every year. That is fantastic. To change the rules for me, I think they have never done that for anybody. I'm very proud of that.
You found this. You talked earlier about Jimmy Connors, and in 1993, the ATP Champions Tour was established, and you begin to then find your niche, and you become it becomes this place for you to showcase your remarkable shots to audiences worldwide, and you become this magician on the tennis court that can do things with a racket that made you one of the most famous characters in today's Legends doubles scene. What is it about this for you now? Is it still the love of tennis, or is it getting to do something that you couldn't do for so many years of your life?
No, it's the love of tennis. First of all, I don't ask anybody anything. I don't need to play. I can stay home and not to play, but the crowd is something gives me so much energy. I love to entertain, and as long as I think I can entertain them, I'll go on the court and I play for them. And it's nothing to do with money or they give me a salary to play, but that is not the reason I'm playing. And it's just love of tennis, and just thinking that I'm not going to play maybe in 4 years, in 3 years, or maybe in 2 years. That is hurting me more than anything else. I just love to play tennis.
You are now playing all over the world. I mean, when there isn't a pandemic, you're beloved. Crowds love you. This story that we've just been through over the last hour, do you see your own story as one of redemption and inspiration, given that you all had to go through? Do you see yourself that way?
People tell me that you are inspiration, and then people come to me and they say your life story, and they tell me, and I think my book was bought in many schools because people came to me and they said this is for the kids. At many tennis schools, even they told me buying for tennis school, the kids, they have to read this, and if it can inspire someone, I'm happy for that.
What is your best lesson that you can impart to those of us who feel like pursuing our dreams are impossible at times?
I think nothing is really impossible, just keeping the hope and never giving up. That is the lesson I got from tennis. And since I was 5-6 years old, I had everything against, and I just kept coming back. 24 years ago, I we call it the Legends Trophy, Trophée de Légende in Roland Garros.
Yes.
And for 4 or 5 years, the director of the tournament was asking him to let me organize the Legends Trophy and everything. And Patrice Clerc, that was his name, great man, very good man. And he said, Mansour, you good, old guys, you're not good. Forget it. we're not going to do it. Nobody is interested. I kept coming back year after year. After like 4 or 5 years, he said, Mansour, I can't take you anymore. We're going to do this once, okay? And I know it's not going to work. And I don't want to see you after that anymore. I don't want to hear you, okay? I said, thank you very much. Just give me one chance. We did it. And I remember very well, there was Henri Lecomte and John McEnroe in the final against myself and my friend Guy Forget. And the court 6, it was packed, 6,000 people, and there was like 4,000 or 5,000 people want to come in, but there was no room. And on the center court, they had the quarter final of the men's singles. There was Alex Correggia the guy I love. He's great tennis player, great man. And Felix Mantilla, they were playing there was 400 people in the center court, 6,000 in our court. And I was watching the president of the French Tennis Federation and Patrice Clerc. While I was playing, I was telling him, what do you think? This is nonsense. This is not working. And he was smiling and say, thumbs up, Mansour, you're doing a great job. And we don't want to do it again. So, and it's been 24 years now.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So hope and never give up. I think people should, because unfortunately sometimes people give up early, soon. But you can, if you keep coming back, things can happen.
Your story is an amazing one. I am so grateful, we all are, that you've spent so much time today. Thank you for doing this. Before I let you go, let me ask you one final question, which is, this is a show about the stories from the Iranian diaspora. You talked a little earlier about your relationship with your identity and Iran. What is your relationship to being Iranian these days? And be honest, be Rook. Do you feel more French? How do you feel when Iranians around the world still claim you as their own?
I love Iran, as I said. I love France. I'm proud of being Iranian. I'm proud of being French too. France has accepted me in this country. My wife is French. My kids are born here. I love this country. And Iran is in my heart. Every day, every second, I think about Iran. And everywhere I see Iranians who are they have some kind of success, I'm proud of them. And really, people come to me in different cities, countries, when I'm playing, hey, Mansour, I'm Iranian, I came to see you, I saw you are playing here. And if I have time, I just have a tea with them or coffee or something. If I have no time, I just shake their hand. I say, I'm sorry, I gotta go. Thank you for coming. And it's really, I am always happy to see when the Iranians come to me and they say, Mansour, we came to see you. That's it. And Iran is a great country. I was there with my kids and wife 3 months ago, in February, 4 months ago. And there were some cities I didn't know. It's fantastic. But, we know that there is a delicate situation but my life is here, and I hope the Iranian people are going to have good days ahead. I hope the things will go easier on them.
Mansour, did you get recognized when you were in Iran? Do people know you?
Yeah, people, they know me more now than 10, 15 years ago, because with the social
YouTube,
media, there's more. But like 10, 15 years ago, when I was going there, in 1 week, maybe one person in the street would say, Mansour. Now, every 4 or 5 meters, people stop me. But
and how does that feel, the country that you left when you were 20, in your early 20s? How does it feel to go back and be recognized?
It's I played there in 2002, 2003, 2004. We had 10,000 people came to watch us, and people are thirsty of any events that you make. Anything you do, the people love to come and see you. Love to come see Europeans. I brought Guillermo Vilas there, Mats Wilander, Borg, all these guys, and they had the best welcome, and people just want to live a normal life, like everybody else.
Thank you so much for this today. I hope after this COVID is really done, you will continue touring the world, that we'll get to see you here in North America before too long. And it's been such a pleasure talking to you. خیلی ممنون هستم. Thank you so much.
مرسی از شما و تمام هموطنان. Say hello, to everyone. Thank you for listening to me, and it was a pleasure.
خداحافظ.
خداحافظ, Jian.
That is the great Mansour Bahrami. He joined us from Paris, France today. Mansour talked about those lonely early days in France. Here's a song from his era, perhaps, and a tribute to all those who've taken that lonely walk at night in a new country. Mard Tanhoy Shab. This is Habib from 1978. Thank you so much for listening to Rook. Thank you for your support. Thanks to our whole team. Mizun Bash.
Ballaba